Technology. Something that has been around since the 20th century and continues to grow, becoming more and more advanced as the days go on. Our use of social media has done more both negatively and positively for the world around us. But today, the film industry. I will be going through the many different ways the young generations have changed the said industry. It is believed by most that as the years go on, younger generations are becoming less and less aware of upcoming projects from within the film industry. Due to word of mouth, a long-running marketing scheme where news gets passed around from one to the other, we tend to base personal opinions off of what social media has us believing. With this, it has become an issue for some creators whose titles don't get as hyped as others. One appropriate example of this, Ridley Scott, the English film director and producer who I'm sure you will have heard of from titles including Alien, 1979, and 1982's Blade Runner. Guest starring on a podcast discussing the said director's movies, the two got into talking of Scott's latest release and its failure. Scott mentions how they made sure the film would appeal to its young target audience, as well as claiming Disney did a great promotion job. But when it arrived in cinema, the title's success didn't reach the filmmaker's expectations, making just over 4.8 million, whereas the budget reported to be 100 million. Talking of this was the director's comment as quoted.
I think what it boils down to, where we've got today, is the audiences who are brought up on these fucking cell phones, the millennium, do not want to ever be taught anything except unless it's you're told it on the cell phone.
Right.
From there, it gets added on how this is becoming a rising issue. What I find funny though is that audience have come out and disagreed with Scott's argument, firing back about the poor advertising done for the title's release. Some saying they had never heard of the movie till that statement, with others mentioning how they saw the trailer whilst in the pictures and found no intention of going to see it as it didn't appeal to them. Adding on, even those who worked on set with the director believed he was wrong in pointing fingers. Ben Affleck was one. He had recently came out during an interview disagreeing with the director's statement, followed by claiming he had slightly misquoted before going on to say about generations today, when it comes to dramas, we would prefer to sit at home and stream the movie based on our preference as a generation and having that luxury to sit at home with a decently qualitied film. So really, times just change. Unlike Mr. Ridley Scott, some creators within the industry have figured out how to overcome that issue relating to lack of recognition. Ryan Reynolds, for example, he familiarised himself with technology and social media, which helped in creating a fan base, leading to a greatly impacted success rate for when Deadpool had released in 2016, especially considering the hate both the project and actor had received once the events of X-Men Origins Wolverine had been written into the timeline.
Wait, is that you?
So really, what works best with attracting the younger audiences today is using social media. In 2022 presently, it is believed that currently we are reaching the end of the DVD era, with streaming services becoming the go-to with how popularised they have become. Being around since 1999, that bestows DVDs a short-lived media format, considering that ideally they haven't been around that long. Even more so when VHS tapes had lasted at least 25 years before the discs began taking over people's shelves. Coming across a website going by avforums.com, a blog by someone calling themselves Family Guy had predicted that the DVD format wouldn't last as long with how advanced everything continues to become. Scrolling through the comments of the said blog, many had found themselves agreeing, whilst others argued, saying that the DVD had many years ahead of them due to how people are perfectly happy with DVD. Going back to the streaming services now, there are of course both pros and cons to this industry taking over the film industry. One example I have, Disney+. Now it is clear how greedy this company is, but do you remember that feature, Premier Access? An extra subscription granting those who join early access to new releases which land on the platform the same day as it does movie theatres. Well, that caused the project's creators to lose out on what they would have been earning. Luckily, the issue had been resolved. Yes, streaming services are making their money, but what about those who worked hard to give us the movies made, as well as those doing their jobs within the cinemas? Coming from a streaming critic, the way they had described the situation was that the film industry is competing with people who do not want to leave their house and they can see any movie they want, anytime, and that's huge competition. Something that doesn't really help the film industry half of the time is the lack of originality given to the audience. Yes, we get moments becoming cliches and the same stories getting retold, but to be fair, that one still counts as what I'm referring to right now, is sequels and prequels.
Who would want to do that? Sequels suck.
Most of the time, we are receiving sequels no one asked for to the perfect standalone movies which become clearly obvious the motive is for money based off of the success of the first. Then when it is additions people are after, expectations get raised the more the sequel is hyped, which usually ends up disappointing the same fans by the release. Which of course is where word of mouth comes into play, lowering the sales due to the disappointment. I'm not saying all franchises are bad, as that would definitely not be true, as some sequels and reboots can end up turning out better than the original. It's just companies continue to go overboard, getting greedy over the success of the first project, leading to, with some cases, the target audience of those titles coming out and expressing that they themselves have had enough. There are celebrities who have learned sequels aren't always worth it. Jim Carrey, for instance, doing the two sequels, Dumb and Dumber 2 and Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, he noticed how they never did as well as the original, and from there refused working in another sequel, which had bummed out those who had spent years trying to get the actor into a sequel for The Mask.
Okay.
Another creator who found themselves being affected by sequels is director, producer and screenwriter Steven Spielberg. Throughout this man's career, he has directed a total of 4 sequels, doing the 3 add-ons for Indiana Jones as well as The Lost World: Jurassic Park. Spielberg claims that the reasoning for his failed sequels are due to him getting overconfident based on the success of the first movie. Piracy, it's a crime. Surely you know what pirating is, but just for in case though, piracy, the unauthorized use or reproduction of another's work. From that alone, you should understand why piracy is illegal. Taken from an article found discussing this topic, a quote was found I just had to share. More than half of all North American millennials regularly use pirate streaming services just to watch TV shows or movies. While legal streaming is preferred, pirate sources are more popular than traditional TV, DVDs or Blu-rays. We have already established how most audiences today are happy enough to sit at home and stream, but when it comes to a film that audiences are wanting to watch but would still rather stay home, they will either wait or find an illegal copy to watch, even if that means sitting through a dodgy copy. Eli Roth, a director who worked on Hostel Part 2, a movie that ended up being leaked online and pirated, heading onto MySpace, the director went on to predict that piracy would be the death of the film industry, just as it was with the music. Spoilers have become a huge issue, mainly with huge upcoming releases, Avengers Endgame,
Assemble,
and Spider-Man No Way Home for example. Before its theatrical release even, Disney had to do what they could to promote a hashtag trying to persuade the fans not to post or talk about the movie till a certain date provided, giving all of the fans a chance to see the film without it being spoiled for them, knowing fine well it was going to happen and put people off. In hopes of avoiding this happening, fans will even stay away from social media from the day of release till they themselves have seen the movie. For some it works, but others, there have been situations where fans were on heading into the big screen just to pass those coming out, spoiling it right there and then. Sometimes yes, fans get overly excited and chat away, just there is some who purposely shout out what happened wanting to ruin the experience for others. With Spider-Man No Way Home doing so well, the film had broken records making $260 million on its opening weekend alone. It is believed that the main reasoning for the success is hugely based off
It's
fear.
live! Go, 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 go!
From this, a film critic had to come out saying, "We all now treat regular storytelling as mega spoilers," with another questioning whether or not people today are only going to the cinemas to avoid spoilers, or is it all because the most popular releases are the ones full of spoilable elements? A thread on Reddit had been discovered whilst looking into this, asking, do spoilers discourage you from watching a movie, or is it the opposite? Scrolling down, half of these answers admitted to being put off, whereas the others either weren't bothered or found it to hype them up more as they knew what was going to happen. After talking of what happens outside of the cinema doors, let's go through what bothers audiences after they've gathered friends, bought their tickets ready, got handfuls of snacks and drinks, strolled through the doors and have found their correct seats, waiting patiently as the advertisements roll, the film is set to start, and there it is, those annoying audiences who ruin the duration of a screening for others. This topic pretty much justifies audiences preferring to remain home rather than paying to sit through 2 hours worth of a movie just for the experience to be ruined by obnoxious strangers chatting away to each other, phones being brought out, etc, etc. Going even worse, during a screening of The Dark Knight Rises in 2012, a Colombian massacre had flared up, causing 50 of the audience to get injured by a man dressed as the Joker. Traumatizing many, in 2019 fans were wary about heading to the movie theatres around the time Joker had released, scared in case there would be a copycat situation, but luckily that that didn't happen. The most that did happen mid-film, a man had went round spitting on the audiences whilst also clapping and cheering every time the character Arthur Fleck had killed someone, which terrified fans. With another cinema having to evacuate due to a man screaming Allahu Akbar, believing the guy had a gun. Bringing social media back up, it has become a technique to leak parts of a project as a way of testing it. By doing so, those working on the product get to see how the customers react and go from there. There is either that, or someone working on set will find a way to sneak a leak online, harming the company. One example I have of this comes from the hype that went around for the release of No Way Home. At first we were getting nothing. The trailer would be delayed again and again, having fans practically beg for the trailer. Once we finally got it in the August of 2021, the film started to become less secretive, with a few additional trailers, on-set photos leaking what wasn't supposed to be leaked, at least so we think. Then the first 10 minutes of the movie had been released by Sony. One response about this had one fan claiming at this point we're getting the whole movie. One leak that practically saved the movie though was the test footage for Deadpool, being an unintentional leak, so that said. Thanks to that leak, we have that movie and it peaked the success rate it had needed. Again, no one wanted the said film until the release of that leak, with everyone wanting more. Reynolds had even celebrated a leak anniversary, as he put it, on its 5th year. What is it that makes a fan base toxic? Fans, who will go out of their way to gatekeep and bully anyone who makes the smallest mistake and go against the opinion of everyone who believes different, which has led fans to being put off of the topic they once loved, followed by celebrities leaving social media due to the issue. There are instances where fans will get what they're after. The Sonic movie, for example. At first, we were given a disaster of a character design.
Meow?
After a little of informing and expressing of emotions, the director had responded, giving the fans what they want. Quite willingly also. Luckily for them though, fans didn't take it too far. Whereas going in the opposite direction now, a studio who did the right thing in refusing the wishes of a community full of toxic fans. Warner Brothers. Being responsible for the release of anything to do with DC, they were aware of the fanbase they had gathered. Mainly though, this goes towards the Snyder fans who get represented as a cult. This is due to the fans only wanting Snyder to create the DCEU and will hate on anyone else who gets involved. Arriving onto the Justice League being released, Snyder was only able to work on half of the project before he had to leave due to family-related issues. Needing the movie complete, the production team had brought in Joss Whedon, who was already known for directing the first 2 Avengers movies. Following its release in 2017, fans went on to bully the creators to the point it was trending over Twitter. In result, we got the 4-hour Snyder Cut in 2021, pleasing all. Now because of their behaviour, we are being denied a sequel. This is a subject focus that has no right nor any positive impact to the film industry being the way it is, and it needs to stop. With so many topics to talk about, this is all I have time for today. I hope you are able to take away the information shared throughout this episode, think it over, and until next time.